Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Marchuk. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. In this episode, we have returning guest, Veronica Hylak. Veronica is the co-founder of MetaLinguist, an award-winning AI product innovator, the co-host, or the host, actually, of the popular video series, The AI Almanac, and a co-member of the AI localization think tank. I think I got that right. We'll be talking with Veronica about Agentic AI, and we're going to be doing it in a very creative way today, Veronica. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate seeing you again, Michael. It's always a pleasure.
It's great to have you on the show. So, all right, tell me what's going on. You gave a little bit of intro here. Is there anything else we should know?
Well, I'm a one-time founder. I've worked for and with Fortune 500 companies like Sony, Walmart, Leidos. I've been in AI and ML for over half a decade, starting with U.S. government on AI autonomous maritime vessels for the Department of Defense, very specific. Shifted into generative AI, as many of us have. And overall, I'm just your tier one product strategy nerd. I've been in product management for about 10 years. And I just love solving hard problems that no one bothers to try to fix. The strategy of helping teams figure out what to build and how to build it is definitely my thing. So you'll probably hear a lot of that throughout this conversation. But yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
Very good. Very good. So, all right. So, setting the stage here. Okay. If Agentic AI was like the Met Gala, which industries would be the trendsetter strutting on the runway right now, and which vendors would those trendsetters be wearing?
Oh my gosh. If Agentic AI was the Met Gala, I think the trendsetters strutting down the red carpet definitely going to be finance, because they always want an edge, especially in automating decisions, forecasting, compliance tasks, customer service and support, chatbots with brains, healthcare. So they're slowly but stylishly experimenting with diagnostic agents and clinical decision tools. And honestly, legal teams, they're surprising everyone with how fast they're testing out agents for contract review and discovery work. Those are probably like the core that I would say are, ahead of everyone else right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would certainly I've seen a number of different things on the legal side because of contracts in general. There's a lot, there's tons of stuff they have to go through. And oftentimes these contracts get very, very long and large. So it's interesting to see that. Although I've also seen quite a few times where generative AI has been used in not so positive of a way within the legal context because of the way it hallucinates. So would that be like a wardrobe malfunction on the Met Gala, kind of thing?
No, the real tea is many, of the outfits. They look great in the showroom, but they don't quite hold up on the red carpet in a lot of situations. And it's why, strategy around building these agentic frameworks is so important. You can't just throw on designer tech. You tailor it to fit to the business. So when you're building them, you don't look at the runway trends. You need to make sure that the shoe fits for your use case through, your product and AI leaders.
Okay, Cinderella. Sounds like a great plan. All right. So let's step away from the Met, and now let's go into like the Marvel universe here.
Okay.
If Agentic AI were a character in a movie, would they be the hero or the villain? And what ethical dilemmas do we face with these autonomous systems? Can we turn them into our allies?
I wish I saw more Marvel movies. I think I was maybe very sheltered as a child, but I think Agentic AI would, if they were a movie character, it would be like the morally complex anti-hero, like the one you're rooting for, but also slightly afraid of. Like, it has the power to save the day by automating the boring, scaling our work, and making decisions faster than any human team. But left unchecked, it can go rogue, amplify bias or make moves we didn't authorize. So it's not evil, it's just extremely literal. Like, that's where things can get dangerous. These agents do exactly what you ask, even if what you asked wasn't what you meant. So you have to kind of build them intentionally.
Yeah, context is everything, isn't it?
Is indeed. I mean, it's so funny. Like, you feel like you were very clear on your instructions, and you're learning how to be a better writer, right? I just completely that you didn't expect it to do.
Yeah, I always thought that, the whole idea of prompt engineering sounded silly to me until you actually really have to start really thinking about how you're prompting because you want to get a specific response back.
Yeah.
And there's some nuance to the way you approach that, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I think, prompt engineering, just like by using an interface like GPT, for example, is just very much like the icing on the cake. Like there's so much that are being built into AI infrastructure now to kind of ground those models in the context that it really needs to give you the very precise answer that you just, can't do as a front end user. Like you need the right tech background and the tech muscle in order to do that. So I don't want to say, prompt engineers, it's, you can definitely optimize the prompt on the front end. I actually, my brother made a O3 prompt design guide that went viral on X. I think you knew this.
Yeah.
Daniel Brockman got credit for it. It was my brother, Ben Hylak, who actually made it. And it showed that like you can design prompts in a way that help your output. But my whole point is, I digress, is that, a lot of it comes from under the hood.
It sure does. It sure does. Okay. So now we're going to whisk our way from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and drop ourselves into a rom-com. Okay. So work with me on this one. Okay. So building trust with AI is kind of like dating. Okay. So what are the red flags we should watch out for, and how can companies woo users with transparency and get them to swipe right on agentic AI?
With AI, it's like dating, and agentic AI can be a smooth talker with commitment issues, I think. The red flag, ghosting your data lineage. Do you know where its answers came from? And if you don't have the right data lakes in place, it might not be very well informed. So that's really like understanding where those questions and answers came from are important. Love bombing with overconfidence. It sounds really sure, but it's dead wrong because it doesn't have the right grounding in place. And boundary issues, making decisions it shouldn't have without, human input. If your AI really can't explain itself or respect the limits of its role, that's a red flag, not a feature. I've never been on Tinder, so I don't really know the dating app lingo, but I guess to get users to swipe right, companies really need to lead with accountability. So showing how the decisions were made, letting users trace back to the why behind the outcomes, and giving them control over what AI can access or actually do. I guess I think of it as clearly labeled data sources, explainable outputs, and a human override button.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So do you think the chain of thoughts kind of models that we've seen, is that helpful?
I mean, I think it's like a step in the right direction. I started to see another version of chain of continuous thought or something like that, like an elevated level of COT techniques that has recently come out. I think it's a step in the right direction, but it's more walking you through its mindset of how it came to the answer versus the data sources it pulled, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that does. So when you start talking about the explainability, are there any specific industries where maybe it's not as important to have that? Where like I keep thinking in finance, you want to make sure that you have explainability because numbers are numbers, and you want to work it through. In healthcare, you don't want to make the wrong diagnosis because your model's hallucinating, right? But is there any place where perhaps maybe it can be a little looser?
I think anywhere that it's, the impact of the error is not severe.
Certainly not life threatening, right?
Right. I think in order to gain trust with these systems, we really need to understand where the answers are coming from. And LLMs are just, they're so guarded. A lot of times the builders themselves don't exactly understand how they're functioning, right? So
Correct.
we build agentic frameworks and AI tools in a way that helps us to increase that transparency and trust with the system. Like, okay, you just gave me an answer. Where did that come from and why? Like, why did you decide that was the correct answer? I think not only will the reliability of the output improve, but also we're going to, start to feel like they're not just tools that we're tinkering, like toys that we're tinkering with.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, speaking of the concept of removing this whole playing with something, we were seeing agentic AI is getting more capable to the point now where these AI agents now theoretically could take on some work roles. So let's jump into our work mindset here. Imagine agentic AI is a new coworker in the office. How would you think the jobs would change with this tech buddy around, and what can we do to make sure that we're all working together harmoniously? I mean, obviously we can't do the whole, water cooler chat thing with them, and maybe they won't be leaving their sandwiches in the refrigerator for too long, but
No salmon, no salmon in the
what is that green stuff at the back of the fridge anyway? I don't know. But okay, so how do we get along with it? How do we work alongside of an agentic AI coworker?
This is, is a lot of people feel really threatened by this concept because, people are worried it's going to take their jobs. I think it would be the tireless problem solver who's great at rapid iteration, who remembers everything and never gets overwhelmed by like your to-do list that you've been neglecting for 3 weeks. It's not here to take over your role, but rather kind of shift how you work. So suddenly you're not spending hours digging through data on Excel and accidentally deleting something that screws up all your numbers or formatting slides. You're brainstorming with your AI, buddy agent, bouncing ideas off of it, refining drafts faster, validating suspicions with data, like not just going off your gut, and scaling your outputs like never before. I think to work together, that is really needed clarity. Humans bring the context, the ethics, the taste, and the lived experience, and AI brings speed, pattern recognition, infinite memory. If we stop treating it like a tool and start treating it like a collaborator with boundaries, that's when the magic's going to really start to happen. Like having a situation where you learn to co-create with AI, not just delegate to it. And that's kind of I think the future that I am most excited for.
I think that'd be very exciting. So when you start looking at applying those capabilities, and you have your AI agent coworkers that are working alongside you in some capacity, how do you see organizations shifting their roles around to be able to support that?
I wish I had the answer for that. I feel like no one has the answer for that yet.
That's why I'm asking the questions, because I'm hoping that somebody does.
I know. I don't think I have the answer. What I suspect is the people that are willing to learn a new way of working are going to be shifting into new roles, learning things like it's exciting to learn new ways of doing things, right? Those are the people that are going to continue to evolve and I think rise up the ladder if you're climbing corporate or startup. That's how I see the most is a shift in being willing to kind of learn a lot more than ever before and do new ways of, have new ways of doing things, not just clocking in and out at the same time every day and doing your job exactly the same.
So, okay, perhaps organizations are still working this through. We talked about prompt engineering. How can the normal folk, someone who's in accounting or finance and within an organization, perhaps they're managing a trade desk at some financial services organization, how can they take the skills they know for the organizational perspective and from their vocation and now absorb this new concept of leveraging AI? Because as you mentioned earlier, there's a nuance to how we approach working with these agentic agents. How do we approach that?
If I'm going to start it from like a complete newbie person who let's say ground zero, you've never touched AI before. Honestly, get a ChatGPT or Anthropic Claude subscription. They're 100% worth it. I actually prefer Claude now because very subtle difference. It tells me when I'm doing something wrong. ChatGPT is kind of conditioned to be a helpful assistant, and it shows in its responses. But Claude's responses, in my opinion, especially Sonnet, tells me, this is what's wrong with what you're doing. This is why I think you're wrong. This is how you can improve. So if you have that access to information that these LLMs provide, if you've never played with them, start looking at them as like your AI collaborator, brain, brain solver, problem solver buddy, because it makes the world of a difference in even helping you formulate your thoughts and work through them and come up with ideas that you couldn't have imagined and apply them in ways that you couldn't have imagined. But that would say like ground zero. Yeah.
What about the folks who maybe have played around with it now and they really want to apply it to their role? I mean, like I said, that nuance thing keeps going back to me because it's one thing to ask, like, hey, I'm going to ask it a question and see what pops up, and it comes up with something, and like, well, that's kind of cool, but how's that going to help me with my job?
Yeah. If you're in, let's say, a corporation and in order to leverage AI safely within your role, I believe that the corporation needs to have an initiative for, moving towards agentic frameworks. That means supporting any idea that you have, but also making sure that the right safeguards are in place and that your data is in the right shape. Because any corporation's ability to leverage these AI agentic frameworks is going to directly be correlated to the condition its data is in. If you are an analyst, a financial analyst at a corporation, and you want, let's say you're using Excel, I hope you're not. So let's say,
They are. Okay.
but let's say you want to get off Excel and you really feel like you can have so much more insights than your static data dashboard that you have, that was built on Power BI 10 years ago. The data that you are feeding into any sort of AI agentic framework needs to be clean. It needs to be, maybe you can help with that. Like maybe it needs to be manually cleaned, or maybe, you can have AI models that help to clean it. But I think ultimately the initiatives need to be supported by the corporations. A lot of them are to clean your data, not fun. But once you do that, you'll be able to leverage it in a lot of ways that will kind of move towards these agentic frameworks that we're discussing.
That makes sense. Okay. Sort of last question here is, so we're going to talk to Madame Veronica.
Michael,
ye-
making fun of me over.
If you had a crystal ball, okay, peer into your crystal ball, the future of agentic AI,
Okay.
what are some of the exciting possibilities that you see, but also what are some of the limits that we might look at or face that would keep this from going viral?
I don't have a crystal ball. I have a chocolate egg on my table though. I could use instead. I could better lip. I'd say the most exciting future of agentic AI for me isn't full-blown automation. It's actually crazy augmentation with an edge. It's having that creative partner that helps you think faster, test weirder ideas, take on way more than you could have solo, helping you have the output of 3 to 4 full-time resources without all the work. Like imagine having a squad of agents that handles the research, the mock-up concepts, spot patterns, challenge your assumptions, like I was explaining with Claude, have a creative team in your pocket. Like I would have loved having that support in my first startup. That's kind of the future I dream of. But in terms of going viral requires trust. It requires stability. Most agentic AI today can be inconsistent because a lot of them are not built with long-term longevity in mind, and that's kind of the problem, and where we're seeing a turning point with corporations. A lot of these agentic AI were built as toys, and now there's definitely a need to be more stable. How do we get there? How do we not have it fail silently, hallucinate? Corporations feeding it a ton of data that are not well cleaned, so the performance is impacted. So
Right.
I think the tech will scale when we start to design more robust frameworks around context, autonomy limits, human in the loop checkpoints, making sure that is happening, based off of who you're hiring to lead these initiatives, like product or head of AI. They're not just chasing buzzwords. Right? It's really important because otherwise you're going to have toys. So you need to make sure that you have people that are thinking about the long game, and they're not going to just chase like this next buzzword and try to implement it and realize you don't have anything that's tangible. It's really important from a product design.
Well, speaking of buzzwords, I think you're a big fan of vibe coding, aren't you?
If I hear the word vibe coding one more time, Michael, I will delete my LinkedIn and leave this conversation. Vibe coding, I'm sure you guys have all seen it. It was going like super viral on X and LinkedIn. And like, then you start to see things like a week later and people are like, I vibe coded this whole product in a weekend, but now they can't add features to it, or it's not built to handle more than like 3 users. And that's what happens when you vibe code. I think it's like really fantastic for quick POCs. Like if you're trying to if you have this idea in your head and you just want to see it tangibly, somewhat functional in front of you to be able to show a stakeholder or an investor or something like that, I think it could be good. The problem is that a lot of times people kind of pressure you to continue to build off of this kind of crummy POC as opposed to starting from scratch if you should. So yeah, I don't like vibe coding. That's why.
I understand that coming from a programming background. I had managed a bunch of folks within R&D, and there's an art to programming in addition to the technicals that you have to have beyond it. And certainly, just like we've seen with the art that's been generated early on with many of the like stable diffusion and whatnot, you end up having people with 12 fingers and smeared faces and very strange bodies. I think we're probably there right now with our vibe coding world.
It's like giving a toddler right now like a CEO title, like good idea, risky outcome. a little. I'm not sure.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I appreciate your input on that, and thank you for your thoughts, and thank you for playing along with the this approach I took today for kind of talking through agentic AI. I really appreciate your willingness to do so.
Of course, Michael, always a pleasure.
All right, thanks for joining us.